Hello, Contrarian Dude here, and I get so many great questions from Bernie Sanders fans. I just decided to make a whole playlist and just do lots of little videos answering them all one at a time. So this is the beginning of that. I hope you really enjoy it. So let's begin with that Dodge guy. There is a slight issue with your view of the free market. The US healthcare system is at dead last in quality in the modern industrialized world. How did that come to be if the free market was supposed to be so great? Why are families practically forced to declare bankruptcy for a broken bone? If the free market was so great, why did this happen? The answer is because the US healthcare system has absolutely nothing to do with the free market. It's very important to distinguish private profits from the free market. Just because there are some individuals who make a profit does not mean it has anything to do with the free market. In fact, very often it's the reverse. America is so awesome, they do pretty much everything better than everybody else. The problem is that includes the bad stuff. The dumb way the rich and powerful hoard all the wealth for themselves, exploit the working class, and exercise power and control over their fellow citizens is like Stalin, Mao, Castro. They do it in the form of communism. The wealth is held by government, and the rich and powerful are government. I remember when I was in Cuba, 8 years ago now, and I remember all just cars everywhere. I couldn't see a car. For days I was there, I did not see a car that was less than 20 or 30 years old. The people are so poor, everything is so old, and then all of a sudden there's just this stream of brand new Mercedes come past. And I asked, what's going on here? He goes, oh, well, that's the politicians. I got that. I know where I am. I understand that the politicians are like that here, but when they sell those cars, I mean, it has to trickle down. Like, don't you guys get? They go, oh no, they sell those overseas. We will never see those cars, not even the old versions of those cars. So this is the dumb way to do it. The mega wealthy sociopaths, everyone knows their faces, everybody hates them, the aggression and oppression is naked and obvious for everybody to see. But the worst part about this system is that people know they can never ever be part of the in club. They'll never be part of the big boys club, and so they just don't try very hard, they don't work very hard, and they don't produce a lot, and so the country eventually goes broke. In the West, they do things a little bit smarter. The rich and powerful hold their wealth as private citizens. You don't really know who they are, you don't know what their faces look like. You can hate the generic 1%, but you're not really totally familiar with exactly who they are, nor their methods, because they're far more deceived. They give you the vote, and you believe that you have power over the electoral system and the governmental system. You don't. They own and control both parties. They own and control all of the politicians. They own and control the media. They own and control the schools through the government. And so you don't even get taught anything that could possibly help you, and nor do you hear any messages in adult life from the media that will possibly help you understand how you're being oppressed. So less than 1 in 1,000 people can actually identify their oppression. It also has the added benefit that it is possible to become very, very rich in this environment outside of through the government channels, which means you have all these people competing in the free market, trying to build businesses, trying to get ahead, trying to make money, and this increases the productivity. So unlike the communist system where people just stop trying and it goes broke very, very quickly, in the Western system of tyranny, then people try and escape the clutches of poverty, work really hard, and obviously some do, many do, but it's obviously stacked against you still. We're just a few days after Mark Zuckerberg wrote a letter announcing that he's going to donate 99% of his wealth to charity. And a lot of people saw that as a good thing. And in actual fact, what it was is him being invited into the big boys club. He is one of those individuals who has amassed enough wealth and power that they've escaped the farm and are trying to join the ranks of the farmers. And so what they get to do now is they get to put all of their wealth into a tax-exempt foundation. He'll never pay tax on any of his wealth again. He actually didn't give anything to charity whatsoever. He just created a charity, transferred his wealth to that. Now he owns and controls all that wealth exactly the same as he used to. It's just in a tax-exempt foundation. He no longer will be paying taxes on that, and he is now welcomed into the club. And he got a whole lot of coaching and marketing skills, etc., about how to sell this to people so that they actually congratulate you and applaud you when you never pay taxes again. You're one of the richest persons ever. Now, just so we're clear, I don't think anybody should pay taxes, but let's not leave taxes for us and give them tax-free status. That doesn't make any sense. Bill Gates is another example of someone who left the farm and became a farmer. So, your question was specifically with regards to the healthcare industry. So, how did that take place? Well, I'm actually going to link in the description. There's a great article. It just happened to be posted yesterday or the day before. And the title is, How Government Killed the Medical Profession. And the first paragraph begins, I'm a general surgeon with more than 3 decades in private clinical practice, and I am fed up. It goes on. Government interventions over the past 4 decades have yielded a cascade of perverse incentives, bureaucratic diktats, and economic pressures that together are forcing doctors to sacrifice their independent, professional medical judgment and their integrity. I'll leave it there, but it's an excellent article describing exactly all of the consequences of government interventions. And by the way, as you read it, it's very clear that these interventions by the government, they were sold to the people as protecting them from quacks and raising the standard of healthcare and giving free healthcare to some people. And all of these things were the sales pitches. But in actual fact, the results were a lowering in the standard of healthcare and an increase in the cost. And by the way, that's exactly what Obamacare is. Obamacare is granting 17 privileged organizations the right to handle your health insurance. No one the world from these terrible threats. And they are just as untrue as the religious nonsense that I mentioned just then. So with that in mind, let me I'll just do one of these fables because I don't have the time to do all of them, but let's talk about child labor. The fable is that the evil, bad capitalist was forcing children to work in the coal mines at age 6, and the kind and benevolent government stepped forward and said no more of this nonsense and rescued these children from this horrible oppression. Okay, so what really was happening was, back in the day, there was 97 people working in the fields producing food to feed 100 people. It was just a 3% margin of error. And any kind of frost, any kind of natural disaster, and you're in starvation territory. And it was really, really difficult to get by. I mean, as recently as the 1900s, you'll know the story, in the famines in Ireland, the famines in Ukraine. That was a communist problem, but the famines in Ireland, there was, the Catholics were having 6 to 8 children, and 4 or 5 of them would die of starvation. That's how hard it was. It wasn't evil capitalists forcing people to eat. It was that people just couldn't produce enough food. They didn't know how to have that wealth. And so what they did was children had to go to work or they were going to starve to death. Now, some people will get caught up and say, well, why didn't they just pay the adults a living wage so that they could support their family and all this kind of stuff? And the answer is the money wasn't there. The productivity wasn't there. They didn't have the productivity and the skills to do that because one person produced enough for themselves and just a little bit more. And that was just the nature of society. But thanks to the free market, workers became a lot more productive. There was the invention of tools and electricity and machinery and robotics and automation and all of these tools that made the worker infinitely more productive. So now parents could afford to feed their family and protect their family, give them a house and clothing, etc. And they didn't have to send their children off to the coal mines. Of course, they loved their children just as much as we do. Like, it's not like they hated their children back then. It was out of necessity. And thanks to the free market raising the productivity of the workers were able to no longer send their children off to the coal mines because it wasn't no longer a necessity. In fact, the free market did such a good job of it that it was 90% eradicated. Almost no children were going to work anymore in the space of only a handful of decades. That's what took place. And that was the free market who allowed 95% of children to not go off to the coal mines. Once almost all of the children were out of the factories and no longer working, then some glorious politician can come in and say, okay, I'm going to pass the law and pat myself on the back as eradicating child labor. There's absolutely nonsense. The free market eradicated child labor. And if you had just stood back for another 5, 10, 15 years, then it would have been completely gone. There was no need for children to work now. Not because the government says so, but just because there's no need to, because the productivity of each worker is so much higher. But the history books teach you that it was the kind and benevolent government that stopped this practice, and it just simply was not. Dodge Guy goes on. So stating that the free market is the perfect system without regulation is completely false. I'm not even sure what the perfect system is. I don't know how, I wouldn't even know a perfect system if I saw it. So I'm not suggesting that the free market system is perfect. I'm just saying it's a hell of a lot better than enforcing things at the point of a gun through the violence of the state. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that video. If there are other questions that you're interested in, please click around this playlist. If you're not on the playlist, if you click on Contrarian Dude there, just go ahead and go to my channel. You can click subscribe while you're there as well. And just have a look at the Bernie Sanders fans answered playlist. And you'll see lots of different questions that are answered by me. Thank you very much. Please like this video, share it, and I'll see you soon.